Good evening and welcome to the live stream. I'm going to start off tonight just going to watch a video for a few minutes, so if you are catching up to this after the live stream, just fast forward about 5 or 6 minutes. There's a video that I'm going to watch. It's about 6 minutes long and we're going to talk about walleye tonight. But thank you for stopping in. Tonight's live stream is going to be on walleye. I'm going to go through a lot about that, so glad you're here. Well, let's get right into it.
Let's take a look down under with this week's Fish Eye View, sponsored by Mercury, #1 on the water. Because walleye are such a popular fish, we've devoted a substantial amount of time to filming them. In rivers, clear lakes, and heavily stained northern waters, we field tested a wide range of baits and techniques, recording traditional and unconventional behavior. It's no secret that wind has a positive effect on walleye activity. Wave action really stirs things up down under and gets things moving. Toss bait into this soup and you'll find them. Everyone knows that jigs are top producers, but what about using an undressed model? We did just that and coaxed numerous walleye into hitting. Strange indeed. This demonstrated the importance of a quality jig head in the proper color. Even more, by adding the right movement, you can get away with anything.
So this video was put out by Lindy, and they make jig heads. You're going to hear a lot of things like that specific, get our jig head. And I'm going to talk about jig heads tonight, but the underwater footage here is fantastic. So we're going to watch how walleye move as we watch this video. Watch how they experiment with nudging the bait and how they actually attack, how they take the lure. It's going to be important in tonight's stream because we're going to talk about how to actually set, how to find, of course, but how to actually set hooks on walleye. They're kind of unique.
And what about surface lures? Most walleye taken up top are caught incidentally while fishing for bass. Even so, we've seen enough evidence to suggest that walleye have tremendous top water potential. We even had them hit in bright sunlight. And like bass, some wanted a stationary target, while others favored a loud performance.
So they said bright light. We're going to talk about light as well tonight. That he says even in bright light, because in the walleye world we know that walleye are typically low light feeders.
Granted, you do need the right situation. Shallow, clear water up to 7 feet in depth. But we have to tell you, we experienced the most exciting and explosive walleye action imaginable. These days, there are a lot of different techniques for catching walleye, some stranger than others. Given the right circumstances, they'll even hit the surface. One of the oldest methods is still one of the best, jigging. Indeed, the twister tail is a walleye standard. Cheap and easy to use, jigs take fish in a hurry. At times, walleye appear suicidal, and yet, as any experienced angler knows, there are those other times. Prone to rapid mood swings, they become darn near impossible. At best, it's a few bumps and nudges you'd swear are tiny panfish. A softer approach to jigging can help. So too, a near motionless vertical presentation. Basically, it's a do-nothing technique that demands concentration and quick reflexes. If this doesn't work, try downsizing by removing the tail portion. It may look ridiculous, but who can argue with success? If all else fails, here's a surefire trick. Send down a minnow on your jig. Live or dead, it doesn't seem to matter. Even midday walleye, fast asleep, can be roused into action when offered the real thing. And don't be afraid of working the bottom to stir things up a little. Yes, walleye really know the difference when it's a genuine minnow out there. And, as we all know, when sushi's on the menu, chopsticks are optional. When choosing lures for any fishing trip, the most important consideration is profile. Individual species have distinct preferences. Trout and bass favor a stout package.
I threw a pike in there. There's a couple pike in here, I believe. I think trout too.
Slender targets. Crankbaits designed specifically for these fish are shaped this way. Fat lures may trigger a few active walleye, especially when fast moving, but
So he's going to be talking about these long, slender baits, and that's going to be the profile that you're going to hear me talk about recommending for lures for walleye, not the short, chubby ones like the one on the screen right now. Like you said, sometimes they will trigger some bites from highly active walleye, but if you're targeting walleye, they're not the profile for it. They just do not, they don't elicit the strike like a long, slender profile is. But we'll talk about lures, and he's doubling down on it right here.
Give them a better look, and this is what you get. The same is true of soft
Swat and miss.
organic man-made baits. Walleye really go for slim imitations. Because they're more durable than live bait, they produce several fish per setup. That adds up to more time in the water and less fussing. One thing we noticed is that walleye prefer to hit any bait from behind, regardless of shape.
That's important to take note of. Walleye do not like to hit the front. They almost always come from the rear.
In stationary jigging, they'll literally swim around to line things up just right. The best way to exploit this behavior is by drifting. Using the wind or a trolling motor, maintain a dead slow pass over proven holding areas and structure. Vary the depth from right on bottom to well above, and experiment with added action. It's a proven technique and really nothing new. But then, tube jigs are. Intended for bass, we tried them on walleye in several locations. We wouldn't have believed it, but they outfished all the old favorites.
We are not going to talk about tube fishing for walleye. But this, on the other hand, when you talk about a jig head with a leech, this is magic. Another pike. I like this ending right here. Right here. He says, forget about it. Forget about it. Well, ladies and gentlemen, that's just a little video I wanted to play, just kind of getting started here tonight. Thank you for stopping in for the live stream. We usually start these on Monday nights at 8 p.m., so we're right on time, really. I'm going to get rid of these headphones. I am streaming to you guys tonight for real. This is actually a live stream. I said that I was going to pre-record this and just upload it for you, but it turns out I had a buddy who had use of a Starlink setup, so here we are. Streaming to you, courtesy of Starlink. Also, thank you, Josh, for loaning me the kit. It is on loan. I'm looking to get my own setup. So, anyways, welcome to the live stream. We are going to talk about walleye tonight. We're going to cover a lot of grounds, and my notes are shoddy at best. So I'm not going to use notes at all tonight. I'm just going to go through the slides with you, and you guys know I like to do a bunch of slides because it kind of keeps these live streams a little bit more interesting. But good evening, everybody in the chat. All right, you're watching on the phone. All right, very good. I see you guys all saying hi and checking in the chat. I appreciate it. I'm going to get right into this just so that we're not, lingering or lagging too far behind on live stream. But before I do, I want to remind everybody we have a bank angling event coming up April 10th through the 12th. I wrote down that this is the 10th through the 12th, but understand this is a late night thing. You can stay over the night before, fish all day, and then fish overnight the next night too. And that makes it 3 days. But the big day is the 11th. I think on the timing, I think I said that it's something like 5 a.m. through the day. You know what I mean? So you don't have to be there for the 3 days or anything like that. It's just I will be there. I plan to be there for those 2 nights in a row. So I'm going to be there Friday night and Saturday night. So, if you guys can make it out to that, I'm going to do my best to make sure that the fish are fired up there along the banks so we can maximize our opportunity for catching. Registration is there on randallrydes.com. It's linked right down below, and it's just I'm sorry, I'm showing you guys the wrong one here. I'm so attuned to showing you guys the Raystown Rendezvous. Here's the bank angling event, excuse me. It's May 9th. So I have the date of May 9th, but it's the night before and the evening of the 9th that I will be there overnight. So the 9th, May 9th. So I'm a little slow, but I'll catch up, I promise. I'll get there eventually. So that is coming up, so hopefully you guys can make that. I want to do a disclaimer short, or at least kind of point this out, that I am doing these live streams on fish species and techniques and stuff that maybe some of you guys know, and maybe some of you do not know. And I'm saying that just to point out that we're all kind of on this continuum of a learning journey, trying to figure this lake out. Not just figure out each individual species, but the lake as a whole. And there's seasonal changes that go on, and then there's our vessel as well. We got to learn good boat control, and then we got to learn rod and reel techniques. So there's a lot of dynamic going along here. Don't feel bad if you don't have it all put together. This is a lifelong journey. It's going to take all of us, our entire lives, to kind of bring this all together. And just about whenever we think we have it figured out, everything will change. And that's fishing. That's why we love it. It's the pursuit that we love. And the catch is just a happy icing on the cake kind of situation. Tonight we're going to be talking about walleye. And walleye is one of, let me say that it's something I'm very passionate about. Yet my expertise, my knowledge on it is lacking. To tell you the truth, there's a lot of things that I just do not know. I'm not sure of. And so you're going to find that I'm going to come to the end of my knowledge, and then we can just have conversation and discussion. I'm going to do a series of these walleye videos over the next couple months here, like through the year. And certainly if I continue this on for years to come, we'll keep coming back to these subjects of species-specific live streams. And tonight is the first one we're doing on walleye. So it'll be interesting to look back after 5 years of doing this, go back to the first catalog here tonight and see what we were talking about. Some of it I'm sure isn't 100% correct. So that's my disclaimer to say you guys are here on the journey with me, but let's get into walleye. Let's start talking about them. When let me jump down here. I think I closed out my folder by accident. There we go. Oh, actually, I have a thing I wanted to share with you guys. This is the start of something pretty cool, I think is exciting. I just wanted to tell you guys thank you, basically. That what you're looking at here is the earnings that I have from Amazon. I'm pretty transparent here about some of this stuff, but in January I earned like $5. February about 20. March it's up to about 30, and we're on track to at least match 30 or even beyond that. So every month it has been climbing. Hopefully that continues as a trend. But thank you guys for doing that. I just wanted to point that out so that I'm making sure you guys know that I see that, and that is a way that you can support this channel without costing you anything. Just follow the Amazon affiliate links down below. When you're going to shop Amazon, start there. And I have some recommended products for you. But thank you. I want to show you guys that it is growing slow and steady. All right, so walleye. Let's talk walleye. So I threw the picture up here for the walleye. I think most of you guys recognize what a walleye looks like. Nothing quite looks like a walleye except a walleye. So there it is in all its glory. So I'm pretty pleased with that picture. I think you guys know what they look like already. So as I go through these, I'm going to get my big head out of the way. I'm going to do my best to make sure you guys can read these. You guys can check the watermarks of the pictures and stuff too to see like where they came up. This one doesn't have one. There's no reference, but rest assured I found just hundreds and hundreds of diagrams, drawings, pictures, all the stuff, right? And I went through a bunch of them because it didn't really suit for what I was streaming tonight, but I'm going to get into a couple of them and kind of talk to you about them. Some of them might look familiar because they work for application for a bunch of different species. But tonight, since we're talking walleye, it's going to have pertinent at least poignant information. I got an error code on my side. Just let me know if you guys are having any trouble viewing the stream, please. I got a little error. I just want to make sure that it's not wrecked, you know. Okay, so there's going to be a little buffering, I imagine. So it might like skip and stuff like that. But other than that, let's keep on rolling. All right, so this picture that I brought up here is just how the effects of light differ in clear and murky. Essentially what it's showing you is we all understand that walleye are light sensitive, and I'll get into that in more detail with you, but whenever it's very clear, of course, the light penetrates further into water, whereas if it's murky, the light doesn't penetrate quite as far. So it will have an effect on the walleye where they stage up at during the daylight hours, but in clear water, it'll have a more dramatic effect on where they stage up. You can see a walleye change depths from 20 feet to 60 feet or more than that. Whereas if it's murky, you might just see them go from like 10 or 15 feet down to 20 feet. It might be a small adjustment, just enough to find them in a slightly different area, but not as drastic, if you will, as a clear water. And we might come back to this one, but specifically you see it's broken up into 3 time periods. That's important to take note of as we move forward here, because we're going to talk about those 3 different time periods and how that, I say, pushes walleye. So it pushes walleye, it positions them, it makes them hold on different sides and angles, and it affects them. So we'll come back to that if we need to, but just the idea that clear water is going to amplify how they drop down during a bright, and this doesn't have to be the sun. This can be a moon. Now, what I would call a hard full moon would just be a very bright full moon. To demonstrate it, I brought this image up to point out that I try not to let my head cover the diagram here. But the bright light, when it's exposed to a powerful spotlight, it's held right overhead. You can barely see it, but if you look at the arrows, you follow them underneath, you'll actually see these walleye hanging right down here on the very, very bottom. This is classic walleye positioning at Lake Erie. At Lake Erie, because they have zebra mussels. So zebra mussels are really prolific, and they clean the water, so to speak. So they get rid of the phytoplankton and the algae and stuff, all the little particulates that are up in the water floating around, especially in the early spring. They can really clear up the water. And what that does, it takes that murkiness down so the light can really penetrate through the water. So right now, when you go to Lake Erie, it's a great time to go to Lake Erie right here at post spawn. So May 4th, I believe. May 4th, opening day of walleye. You go up to Lake Erie and you'll be able to catch them kind of shallow, maybe 20-foot area. Take the boat out just offshore and you'll be able to just troll through there and do pretty good on walleye. It's a good time to go for them. But even at Raystown Lake, you'll be able to pick them up around similar depths, things like that. But the water is going to be relatively clear if the zebra mussels are in it real heavy. So we do have zebra mussels at Lake Raystown. So we're going to experience this change here as well. And it's not all good. So zebra mussels are a real problem to contend with. And I don't know if there's any solution. If there is, nobody's given. If somebody has it, it's $1 million solution. So bring it up and make your $1 million, and we will all be happy for you because you'll get rid of our zebra mussels. But what we're seeing here is the sun driving these walleye down to the bottom. They have a very real-time effect. The sun has the bright light has a very real-time effect on where these walleye are going to position. You can actually see it says they lie flat on the bottom. The only reason they don't go anywhere else is because they can't go deeper. These fish want to get away from that light as much as possible. And they'll keep on going to deeper and deeper water until they're comfortable. But they'll just keep on diving. So in this one, it's a stark contrast when there's dim light. It takes about 20 minutes. and they just start moving around constantly. So they relax, they can move. It's almost immediate is what it's saying. But this is just dim light, because you can still see the lamp and stuff like that. So this is just not lighting up the tank. But when it's dark out, it's going to be pitch black. I don't know why my coffee pot was on. I certainly didn't mean to turn it on. Oh, my coffee pot just started chirping at me. I set the clock on it, and I must have bumped the on button. So the fish will start moving around. This is why walleye get very active at night. They are a night feeding species of fish, and you'll notice that a lot of guys who target walleye will actually go put their boats in late at night, like 9, 10 o'clock at night, and they'll go fishing for walleye because they end up coming up and they get a little bit more active. Essentially, they can catch them at night by casting the banks with the baits and lures that are known to be good for walleye. But that's the time at night when they get really active. Yeah. I might come back to these, but this light, I'm driving this home because the light is so very important. When you actually start focusing, like if you come with me up at Lake Erie, a lot of times we go out to 60 foot of water to 70 foot of water because that's where they're at. And I strongly believe the biggest reason they're out there is because they just go down to the bottom of the water and they keep on swimming out until they are deep enough that light isn't bothering them as much anymore. Now, if they go further than that and they start getting more and more deep, there's other issues with discomfort that's not light. So you end up catching these walleye in a little band of depth, and you can usually target them pretty steady up there. And that's the reason we do so well with walleye up there, is they get banded during the daylight hours. And if you know how to fish for them and you can get out to that target range, you can usually load up pretty quick. That being said, if you come in shallower, you can still catch a few, but it's not going to be like that. In this example, they just did the light straight down, but you can see just barely make it out. There's a board right here. And so immediately these walleye all shifted over, and you can just make them out in the darkness there, but they move to the shaded area. And they move somewhat more than they did in the bright light. So I think that just means that, yeah, they'll come up in the column, but they're not going over here. They're still going to be stationary in this section. They're not going to move over into the light. They're getting away from it. And the angled light was interesting. So this might represent like morning light. So first light, it's actually reflective off the surface. The majority of this light gets angled up and away from the water. So the early morning bite for walleye usually isn't too affected. I've noticed this. I call them sunrise walleyes. So when you start the day and you're already out on the water and you're catching walleye right at sunrise, it feels pretty good. It's a good place to be. But like it says, the light intensity going down through the water isn't too bad. But make no mistake, as the sun, or the lamp in this case, gets higher, you're gonna find yourself back into this situation right here where they're all pushed to the bottom. And then again, as it drops, you get a hard, so this light came up and all the way over. You get that hard angle on the side, they become active again. Walleye are slave to the light. So the light, if you ever look at their eyes, let me go back to the diagram. Most of you have held a walleye, but if you haven't, you can see the eye. It's big in the diagram, but I should have taken an extra slide or picture, just their eye. It's bulbous, it captures the light. And so it's a discomfort that I don't think, and they don't have eyelids. It's not like they can squint and get away from it, So the brightness hitting their eyes, I believe it's actually painful for them. It's a discomfort thing. They can't get away from it. They wish they could. All they can do is dive deeper and try to hide from it. A lot of times you'll find walleye sitting underneath structure. Like there'll be a fallen tree, and they'll be down underneath it with its back up against the underside of the timber. And it's really tough to drag a lure trolling through timber. So walleye at Raystown Lake, it's kind of tough to target them because they do that a lot. They get into the timber and they wedge themselves in a little dark spot until nighttime, and then they come out and they feed. There's ways to do it. It's just not easy. Good evening. I see you guys. Good evening. Doug, good to see you, buddy. Haven't talked in a while. Okie dokie. Let me bring us back to where we were here. So there's your walleye. Very highly affected by light. I brought this one up. I had a couple thoughts about this picture. I kind of went back and forth with this. I didn't know if I liked it or disliked it, but it did talk about the wind and how that cuts the light penetration down. And this is something you guys know. I've talked about this quite a bit. Any disturbance you get on the water will cut down on light. If you get overcast skies, so, a rising barometer is going to bring in storm clouds and stuff. I've told you, fish before a storm. It's good fishing. It's about light penetration, and I like a little bit of murkiness in the water, anything to cut down on visibility. Now, this is just talking about wind specifically, and it says that they face into the wind. I think what you're actually seeing here is they face into the current. Of course, the wind creates a current, and they naturally, most fish, turn into the current, which kind of brings me back to trolling direction or cast retrieve direction. There's a lot of people who talk about whether you should troll into the current or with the current, and I will tell you they both work. The natural presentation is the fish looks upstream and the bait comes down toward it. And so he has a long time to look at it and has a long time to lay. Usually what happens is it passes the fish and they turn and they bite it. And then the other train of thought or the frame of mind is that you troll into the current, bringing your bait up from behind the fish. This is your fish here. And my bait might be coming up from behind the fish. And as it passes, it gives chase and it takes it. I can tell you both techniques work. If you want my opinion on it, I'll tell you to troll your artificials into the current. And if you're using live bait or chunk bait, I would tell you to drift and use slipping, bouncing, and just slip texting, your drift techniques. I would say to use those techniques to work an area. And you can bounce a point by drift fishing or doing what we call slip fishing. And you guys can watch my drift fishing live stream from a few weeks ago if you guys want to learn about that a little bit. So that's just my opinion. You troll into the current, but if you're using live bait, it's good to park back and then fish down current. But I personally don't troll with the current. I don't troll that way. Not artificials. I certainly don't. But if I'm drift fishing or if I'm just rod in hand, kind of bouncing or slip fishing points and stuff, absolutely, we'll fish down current. So this has a little bit of information. You guys can reference it. I think my favorite thing about it is the fact that we have the walleye relating to this structure. But I think it's slightly inaccurate, unless this is nighttime. And it might be nighttime because they got like charcoal in the sky. So maybe this is nighttime. This looks pretty good for nighttime fishing. I think if this is daytime, these fish are going to drop off of this structure that they're relating to. And they're going to drop down. Where? I think this ledge right here looks good. It's like a secondary ledge. They like ledges and drops. So if you can find a drop-off with a ledge down there, that's usually their daytime spot. Usually not down here in the trough, though. This, especially in this diagram, because it's showing like a sandy or muddy bottom, they don't really prefer that. Sand is okay if it's real firm, but generally speaking, they're going to hold to your hard surfaces. That's your timber, that's your rock, things like that. But if you can find a steep drop-off with a ledge, and we're going to talk about that a little bit as we move forward. But that's kind of what I came up with this. Talks about oxygen as well. I covered that before. I'm not going to get into it, but generally speaking, there's more oxygen at the top because of the wind blowing the waves. It just oxygenates it, and there's less oxygen as you go deeper. And finally, when you go deep, 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 there's no oxygen. Very few fish go down there. I'm going to get into that one in just a second. Hey, Josh. Nice. Appreciate it. Josh is our pal who got us set up with live stream tonight. And Josh, if you'll share me your referral link for live stream, I'll put it right here in the description so folks can follow it and you can get a month free or however they handle that. But good. You guys have any questions specifically about walleye? I'm done with my notes. That's all I had. I will say this, as we fish Lake Raystown, I know the quality fishery we have, and I think most of you are figuring it out as well. The main trophy species that people target are going to be lake trout and striped bass. With that in mind, I want you to branch beyond that and include other fish species. So fall in love with the process of learning how to target the multiple species that are on this lake, and over time you'll develop some more techniques, and you'll find that one technique leans to success with another species of fish. So even though you're not targeting lake trout, let's say you're throwing a swim bait for the bank for bass, and you end up loading up into a lake trout here in the early spring, very popular, very common, and you figured something out. You're like, oh, the Lakers are up shallow in the spring. That's right, they are. Now later in the year, you're probably not going to pick them up so much, not along the banks as you're casting for bass. But if you go out night fishing for bass and you're catching some bass, throwing that paddle tail, and then you pick up a walleye late at night, I'm like, oh, walleye bite at night. Yeah, but you're probably not going to pick them up during the day because the light is going to drive them back. Bass are not as sensitive to the light like walleye are. So you start to put things together whenever you're targeting one species, and you learn the others, and you can kind of, you can monkey branch the information. And don't feel bad if you fail the first few times you're out. That is all part of the dance. I underlined in this diagram reduced clarity because that was the main point. But we're going to go through 2 slides. These are taken from the same picture, so this sentence is a continuation of the next. So we're going to look at these different structures here. 1, 2, 3, and then 4 down here deep, 5, 6. And we're kind of go through this so you understand how a walleye moves through the structure system. So you can see they do concentrate around the mouth of an inlet stream, but it's saying here because of reduced clarity. I want to say that yes, they do congregate them around the mouth of an inlet stream, but I want to be careful about saying where. Let me do this. I'm actually going to bring up Lake Raystown mapping, and you guys can use this mapping program. It is located down in the description. You guys are welcome to bring it up if you want. All right. So let's find the mouth of a stream. Let's just go to let me think of a spot here that might be random enough. I zoomed in a lot there around James Creek. Yeah, let's go over here to Nancy's, because most of us by now are pretty familiar with Nancy's campground. So let's go there. It's good to use an illustration from a place you're familiar with. This is Nancy's campground right here. This is where I did the Fishin' and Chillin' event for all those years. I usually camped right here on this point. And right here is Trough Creek, just up from it. But what we're going to look at is here at Nancy's, we have this little cut right here. This is where water kind of flows in, right? A little stream. I think I'm sharing the wrong... Give me 1 second. I want to do a different screen capture for you because it's bringing up the live stream. Not that that matters. I just want you guys to have a full view of the map. All right, good. So the water is coming down this stream that's right here. It's a very small feeder stream, a little tiny tributary, and these are all over the lake. So this is not unique to Nancy's. You can find this, between every mile marker, there's probably 5. So there's a ton of these all over the lake. So a whole bunch of them. So go find one and see if you can apply this information and see if it helps. This stream is going to come out, and in the picture that I just showed you, it says they concentrate around the mouth of an inlet stream, which is true to some degree. However, this is the inlet here, so they'll concentrate around the mouth. So this would be around the mouth. This would be right here, right? I have, and I think that it's not just me, but I think we've come to a conclusion that they don't necessarily gather right here in the mouth, but as the diagram mentions, it's around the mouth. But it's not usually in the throat. It's not in the main channel coming out from these tributaries. What you would do is you would find these drops that are near it. As a matter of fact, I would even go farther. Let me zoom out just a little bit. What I've noticed, or what I'm starting to learn, or at least I'm putting together a hypothesis here, and I think it's pretty accurate from the reading I've done, and we're going to do some more of this, so it's going to be interesting to see how this plays out. When you have a feeder stream, what I tend to do is I say, okay, we got a feeder stream. This is like, check that off the list. That's one thing to look for. The second thing is to find the channel. And here's your main channel. And then I want to find a steep drop off. And I'm putting this together in real time with you guys, so this wasn't planned ahead, but I'm going to try and explain my thought process here. Here's your feeder stream. Here's the main channel. This area, we're going to look at it to see if maybe it's a walleye area. And so there's the two things I want to look for. I got the main channel and a feeder stream. And the third thing is this steep drop off right here. This steep edge right here, I would assume that there's a little bit of shallow up along the edge that, the walleye could fish and hunt. They could actually hunt that at night. Or they can come up here and fish or hunt this shallow area here at this feeder stream. Essentially what I'm saying is if you have a feeder stream and you have a main channel, look for the steep drop-off that's near it. And I would probably even narrow this down to right here, because I don't think walleye are going to go too far from the feeder stream. I think they're going to stay close to the shallow area that you're going to find around these feeder streams, these little flats, because they're going to want to hunt them at night. But during the day, they want a low energy way to conserve energy. So they're going to drop off into these steep drops. This might be steep enough right here. So they could be not on the throat, but they could be just down here hanging out on the front. There's some other issues we might look at, like the brightness. So during the day, it might be that 30 feet just isn't deep enough for them. So they're going to drop deeper and deeper. Now, if they swim from the feeder creek all the way out here into the main channel, maybe some of them do. It's a little bit of a swim. But how much easier is it if they work this point and then just simply drop down into the deep right here, and they get there 40, 50, 60 feet. And if they wanted to, they come all the way out here to over 80 feet in the main channel. But again, they don't typically hang out in the channel. So even if it's a small feeder stream or the main channel, I'm not looking for walleye in those channels. What I'm looking for is the break. As I used to say, the pinch points. It looks like God reached down and he just squeezed those topographical lines together, to squeeze them, the little pinches. So right in this area would be a good area to check and see if there's walleye. If you were going out blind fishing around Nancy's, that would not be a bad place to check. Somebody go fish that, post a picture holding a walleye and say, it worked. Randall got us on some walleye. But that's the idea. I think that's how they move. I think most people who look into this are kind of agreeing. So let me go back to our diagram and kind of tie it all together. So what we have here at position 1 is, yes, they are concentrated around the mouth of an inlet. I would say this is low light kind of situation, maybe even, like it says, just reduced clarity, because I think low light, guys, they'll be right up in there in 1 foot of water, right along the bank, grabbing whatever sediment there is that's coming off the edge too. And I'll talk about rising and lowering water in just a minute too. But we'll come back to these guys. So this is low light situations. And then number 2 is just talking about the bottom they prefer. Like I said, they do like something really firm. So rocks like the size of your fist are perfect. Even bigger rocks, but like a fist size. Think of rocks you can pick up. So rocks that are too big for you to pick up, those aren't the ones we're looking for. We're not looking for Buick-sized rocks. We're looking for rocks that you can, as big as your fist, and rocks that you could probably pick up. Something like the size of like a watermelon or something like that. But something solid bottom. And then number 3, you'll see it says there's none there because it's just mucky. Just muck. It's a wash. And I know there's someone out there that's going to say, heck, I've done it. I've caught them out on the flats whenever it's just like it's an eddy and you just get a lot of silt and mud and slime and stuff. Yeah, absolutely. They cruise back there. I'll tell you why. It's probably because they were back there hunting and they were working through the weeds. And walleye love to hunt weeds, especially weed edges. So if you find where the weeds stop, right there along that edge, that's a walleye spot. So that's something to consider while you're out there. Bass do it as well. So you're going to be out there fishing for bass and fishing for walleye if you find that weed edge. But that's good. Really, any edge, any transition is a good spot to check out. Multi-species anglers love to go after all of them. So it's a good chance. I'm going to put my picture on there a little bit. So number 3 is just saying that there's none there because it's soft and mucky. Now we're going to go to number 4. It's on the next page. And it says there's no walleye in the deep hole because the depths are too cold and often lack sufficient dissolved oxygen. I've talked about reduced oxygen before in other streams. You have to breathe. You're not eating if you can't breathe. So breathing is fundamental, important. It's stage 1. You have to be able to breathe. So make sure that you can the walleye, the fish you're seeking, have enough oxygen to live in. And then you see this right up here between 65 and 70. They're going to live in that range, and that's true. They're going to find that comfort. I think at Lake Erie, what we have is the light penetrating. And then I think probably what we have is at 60 feet in July and August, the water probably down at 60 feet is probably right in that band of temperature. So if they go out to 90 feet, it's too cold. So they come back in, and even though it's kind of bright, it's just like it's that little equilibrium zone. It's where they're most comfortable. And I think the water is still bright down there for a walleye, but it's still the most comfortable that they can be. So they tend to just kind of, they're probably right in the very edge of, that's actually I'm talking about, it would be the higher range, the 75. So it's probably right where it's 75 or something, but probably in that range. So it's deep water though. I don't know, it's crazy to think it'd be that warm. But I think probably what we have down there is light and temperature and oxygen that limits them from going any deeper or any shallower, generally speaking. So you will find some stragglers here and there, both sides, but we're talking about the rule, not the exception to the rule. All right. Do me a favor, take just a minute, hit the thumbs up, let YouTube know that we are doing good stuff here. Do you guys have any questions before I jump into the final bit of this slide? Walleye fishing is, we'll say it's a tough nut to crack at Raystown Lake. I think what you have at Raystown is a difficult fishery because it's so dynamic. It's a deep water fishery, and then you get species that are very niche. So they have a specific way they exist, and then they have another, like a subset specific way that they exist at Lake Raystown. So you can go to other places and catch bass because they have a shallow water fishery, and so the bass do bass things that they do in shallow water, and that's pretty quick to figure out. That's pretty straightforward. But when you come to Lake Erie, now it's all deep water bass techniques, and that's something we don't exercise a whole lot, or we don't understand as bass anglers. And the same thing can be applied to everything from striped bass to walleye to yellow perch to all the species. So now we're going to deep water versions of what a crappie does compared to shallow water version of what a crappie does. And so it's a whole new level a depth of understanding. So that's why it's a little bit slow here to figure it out, but we are here to dig into it. I think we're doing good. If you guys have any questions, just say so in the stream or shoot me a message afterwards. I'm happy to talk to you about it. Now, number 5, it's saying the walleye are being drawn into the trough between the sunken island and the shore by wind-induced currents. So you see the weeds up here? I think that, okay, so the diagram does a good job saying they're being drawn in. So they're talking about wind and water currents and stuff. But let's not forget the fact that they do need to eat and they're hunters. I do like that they still have them relating to the rock and the rubble right here. I would say that this is more of an active walleye, whereas during the highlight time, they would probably come right down here to this transition, and this would be an inactive walleye. And inactive doesn't mean uncatchable. Inactive just means they're not actively hunting, which is 90% of their life. So that 10% of their life is when they're actually up chasing the shorelines. That's why we put in at 9 p.m. and go cast the banks, because that we're going to catch that little window of time that the walleye is actually active that day. It doesn't mean you can't catch them when they're inactive. It's just you have to fish for them a little bit differently. Usually a little bit more finesse, usually a minnow-tipped jig head or other options. I'm going to talk about rigs before this stream is up, so hang tight. But they're up here, I believe, in this diagram, if it's real. I think they're working this weed edge. They're hunting. They're active walleye. Whereas when they get inactive, they'll drop down to the edge of this hard bottom. And they'll find this kind of a ledge here. Walleye love ledges. It's very important. We're going to talk a little bit about it in a minute. But I think that's where you would find your inactive walleye. That's where you're going to find 90% of the walleye. They're going to be inactive, hanging out on ledges and transitions and the other places that they hang out. So saying shallow, rocky shoreline exposed to the wind makes excellent spawning habitat. Guys, I was out on the water for about 2 hours today, and the wind was whipping. And it has been off and on like that for like 2 weeks. So I know it's been a little bit tough to get out there and keep your boat straight, but wind creates good situations. And we are post Raystown Rendezvous, so we are in the spring bite. If you guys haven't got your boat out on the water, you need to. But when you do, expect springtime conditions. You're going to have some high winds. You're going to have some rainstorms move through. You're going to have situations that create great fishing and tough boating. Deal with it. You want to be on the water. This is the time. Just suck it up, Buttercup, and get out there. These are the days. On that note, I have one charter scheduled this week, so I actually have open days. If you guys want to go fishing with me, let me know. I am looking to fill my schedule. I'm out there fishing by myself. I wish I was fishing with you guys. If you want to go, just hit me up. Let me know. All right, very good. Let's move on. I wanted to include this one because you can read the title here. That they don't always suspend like this picture. I got to be honest. I don't see walleye suspending. That's not the tendency at all. Sometimes they come up because they're feeding, but they go down. They don't just stay there. It doesn't seem to me that they stay there at all. And so very rarely do they actually do the suspension. But what I loved about this diagram is that they say they always relate to structure. This, I do believe. They always have something they relate to. Relating to just means they come over, they swim past it, and they swim over it. It might be a hump, it might be a point, it might be just a rock sitting down in the water that's pretty unassuming. There's nothing special about it, but they go over, they swim past it, and they might go upstream or downstream a little bit, but they're going to turn around and come back to it and swim past it again. It's like they navigate. It's like I've seen deer do the same thing. Like a deer knows a fence line that leads to a field, or it knows a fence line that leads to a single oak tree on top of a field, and then it knows from that single oak tree it can go down past this barn that's off in the distance, and on the back side of that barn there is food for them. And so they navigate based on these structure, these landmarks, back to where they sleep, where they're safe, back at their bedding area. Same idea with fish. They relate to structure. These are landmarks to the fish underwater. So landmarks underwater is what we would call structure, and it can be anything from tree to rocks to the car that went in at the dock, whatever it is. So they'll come back. That's what they use to navigate. And I want to point out too, look at this diagram. Look at that drawing. Isn't that great? If I could, every slide I showed you would be a hand-drawn picture. That's by Wiley Miller and Bill Binkelman and George Pazik. Looks like Wiley Miller is actually the one that drew it, though. I love that. That's awesome. But yeah, they're always going to relate to structure. Here's an example of the pinch point. It's on the front side as well. I'm calling it the front side. I like that. You can see the walleye are down here in about 25 feet. And they are relating to that edge, that tight pinch point. So that's what it's showing. What does that look like? What does that look like at Raystown Lake? Let's have a look at what that looks like at Raystown Lake. So these tight pinch points that I pointed out to you earlier, right here they are. So if these topographic maps are correct, and sometimes you got to go out and you got to actually shoot your underwater electronics and read this. What you might find, so the blue area is 30 feet or less. You might find that you don't have the steep drop off till you get to like 50 feet. So like you can almost make out like a gradual steep drop off right out here. Do you see what I'm saying? Where it goes from those pinch lines to where it starts slowing down, and you get this little kind of not a flat, certainly not a flat. It's still sloped, but it's a gradual slope. I'm experimenting with looking at this map, but I would say that right in this area would be an excellent area to check for walleye. There's a gradual slope that gives them a depth range that they can choose what's most comfortable for them to hang out during the highest sun, the brightest portions of the day. And then when it gets dark, it's no problem for them to come up here and work this flat. And they can come up here and work in front of Nancy's. That's a big flat out in front of Nancy's. It's huge. And you don't have to stay on this side of Nancy's either. There's also a feeder over here. So you can check this side right in here. But the point is you're going to be looking for those feeder streams, the main channel, and then in between them, look for steep drop-offs. And as you find those steep drop-offs, look for a ledge. Look for an area where the fish can drop off of and come back up pretty quickly without a whole lot of energy being expended. If you can find this area right here when you go out, that's probably a pretty good area to look for walleye. And they might be up here shallower in like 30 feet. Here's a steep drop. They might be holding like right in here. But they're going to find those gradual slopes as they taper off, and that's where they're going to rest. They're going to rest, or they're going to go deeper based on the light penetration. I'm telling you, the light penetration on walleye, because they're so sensitive, they're going to go deeper. They're going to try to get away from it, but they can only go so far. But they're going to find that comfort zone for them that they're willing to tolerate. And it's a rough life, man. This poor walleye, man. It's a rough life. Yeah, Buck, I do dislike the wind as well. I am talking to you, buddy. You and I need to get together and go fishing. I think what we ought to do is get together and go do some ugly weather, terrible weather, like the worst weather. I'm talking about spitting rain, high winds, and you and I should get together and do crappie fishing. And we'll call it the crappiest day for all the crappie. And we'll go out and we'll just kick butt crappie fishing together. You and me, Buck. Let's put it together. Bad weather, great fishing. That's what it's all about. But that's a good spot to check if you guys want to look at it. There's a tip. I don't know if it's going to work. Somebody, please go out there and catch a walleye off that, and post a picture on one of the fishing channels. Tag me in it so that we know that these videos are actually helping people on the water, real time, catch the fish they want to target. So if you guys appreciate these videos, do that for me, please. Most of you have already done that. Thank you. Appreciate that. You're following the links. I see that my affiliate links are growing. And let's keep trucking. Let's keep trucking. So yeah, here's that steep drop off that I was just talking about. That is Nancy's. Now this is on the opposite side, but just flip this over to the other side because the current will be coming at Nancy's, be coming from the right side to the left. So I would assume that they're going to end up over here, but certainly if they just swam straight out, because of the topography, I think they would end up over there. That's what I'm saying. In this case, they'd be on the pillow side. Remember talking about the pillow side, the upstream current, the up current side? This would be the pillow. So this side gets hit with the current. I do believe they hold there as well. So both sides are good to check, just not the throat of the tributary. You don't want to be right there where the old stream channel is. All right. I put this up here. This one's a little bit, this can be maybe a little bit, I don't know what to say about it. Do I get more on there? It's, you know what, honestly, it looks like Nintendo. Doesn't this look Nintendo the way this is like diagrammed up? It's like real gritty or something, like low, lo-fi, if you will. But it had some great points on it, and I highlighted a couple because I want you to notice the trends. Walleye tend to key on, so we're talking about structure, specifically on structure. The break lines, the stair-step break lines, this will be where it drops off, and then you get a slope, the gradual slope that I just pointed out to you on the map. The area is near deep water, so you want to have access to deep water. That doesn't mean they're going to be there, but you want to have access to the deeper water. Deep water is, I think you could say deep water is anything over 50 foot. So you want access to 50 foot of water. And then the points, especially these hammerhead points, is just a style point, but points. So that point at Nancy's that I just pointed out to you, you want points. That's important for walleye. And here's another one. It's talking about the stair-step break lines and the points at cove mouths. So are we noticing the trends? Regardless of whether it's flat, rocky, or vertical, regardless, these highlighted points are what I wanted to make. I want to imprint these on your mind so that you're focused on the actual structure, not overly difficult about whether it's flat, rocky, or vertical. But what you're looking for is the structure, the stair-step break lines, the areas near deep water, points, the break lines, and the points. These are the things that are very consistent with walleye, regardless of what the substrate and underwater topography looks like. These highlighted points here are where they're going to tend to relate to. And I thought it was great, too. It had a thing here that says egg to melon-sized rocks. Remember I said it should be like the size of your fist? Or a rock you can pick up? I think that's kind of where I was going, too. So it's like an egg or a melon size. My hand might be like 2 eggs, but general idea. You got it. So, yeah, these are the trends that you want to look for. Deep water with access to deep water, but a point, and then you want to have that stair-step break line. So that stair-step, where the slope's coming down, and then maybe there's just a gradual slope. They'll go up and hunt in the shallows, and then they'll drop off down there, and that's where you'll find your inactive walleye. 90% of your walleye are inactive when you are fishing. So 90% of the walleye are going to be out there staged up, waiting on those break lines. So you got to start to recognize what a break line is, or that stair step that I was talking about. So when it goes steep and then it isn't quite so steep, then it goes steep again. So that little ledge right there is what you're looking. The one that's in the middle. As long as it's in the right depth and right temperature, you should be able to start marking fish. And they're not just going to be walleye. There's a lot of fish that favor that kind of situation. And but tonight we're just talking about walleye. I threw this one up here because of the old diagram. I hate this diagram. Honestly, I don't really care for it. But it does demonstrate the pillow. So the current is going this way. And it demonstrates that there's more fish loaded up on the pillow side than on the back side. There's still fish, potential for fish, on both upstream and downstream. But the pillow side, I've found, has been pretty consistent at holding a few more fish than anywhere else. I don't like their orientation. I don't think that makes too much sense. I don't know why they're pointed backwards. But anyways, just to point out that the pillow side does tend to hold more fish. Now, I talked a little bit about how the fish are relating. I'm going to make my head real small here. A small head, like Beetlejuice. How and where to fish during rising and falling water. I put this in here because we're talking about spring right now, and we fish Raystown Lake, so we do have rising and falling water. So if that should happen during walleye fishing, this is very relatable to other species, but again, we're just talking walleye. What you'll end up with is they have like this innate knowledge. So there's knowledge in these fish that they just know how to do things, right? Like think about the fish who swim upstream to spawn. They're born with that knowledge. They just have information given to them from God. This is one of those things that's so cool about walleye and fish in general, a lot of fish in general anyways, but certainly true of walleye, that it's just planted in them and they can do this. When the water is rising, so when we get heavy storms, let's say we're going to get like 3 days of rain. It's the middle of summer. So nice dog days, hot out and everything. Say we get like a heavy rainstorm and it comes in and we're going to have rains for like 2 or 3 days. One of those like long, steady ones. What the walleye tend to do is move from the deep, and they come up here and they push the banks. During that rising water, what you get is a lot of dislodged sediment. The bugs that were all crawled down inside the soil, they're not made to be underwater, so they have to come out of the water. And these walleye, the other fish species, they figured that out. If they can get up on the shoreline, they know there's food waiting for them. All they have to do is go push their nose through the dirt, and bugs are going to come out, and they'll have meals for days. And the bait fish as well will go up there to eat the insects, but certainly the walleye are going to push up there and eat the insects and the bait fish. And bait fish are actually notorious for eating. Well, I'm gonna talk about their food source in just a minute. I have another slide. But when it's flooded, they move in, and then whenever it's fallen off, again, when they see it falling off, they don't just recover; they drop. It's like they want to make sure they get far enough away, so when the waters are dropping, they go deep. So if you see that the water levels at Raystown Lake, and we have variable water levels because the Army Corps of Engineers increases or decreases the water levels. So this is an important one. If we know the water levels are dropping, like 1 foot a week for the next 3 weeks, anticipating the heavy hurricane that's moving up the East Coast, this is what they do. They drop that water by a foot or 2 feet or whatever it is. Those, not just walleye, but walleye, they're going to push out, and they just instinctively figure this out. I believe it's just the pressure change in the water. With every foot you go down, you're gaining pressure with water, and I think they know that the pressure is decreasing, and so they just they go deeper to where that comfort zone is for the walleye. They tend to go deeper and deeper and deeper, but I think they overcorrect. I think they go way further. They get ahead of it in most cases. So when the water's falling, they fall. So if it's rising, they rise and they go extra high, and whenever it's falling, they fall and they go extra deep. So you'll be changing. It's talking about using a different ounce of jig here, or a deeper crankbait. But basically what you're going to have to upsize your gear to go deep, and then you want to downsize your gear to go shallow. But we'll talk about rigs in just a minute. Buck says okay. Looks like we're going nasty weather, crappie fishing. Crappy weather, crappie fishing. Let's do it. Who's in? We'll all follow each other. I'll take you guys to all the hot spots. Let's do it. We'll get a swarm of boats out there, and we'll just go descend on the crappie during the weather. We'll be like bumper boats bouncing off each other, pulling crappie in. It'll be a good time. You guys have any questions for me so far? I'm going to get into rigs. I think I'm on rigs next. Let me do a little preview here. Yeah, I'm going to get into rigs here with you. So the nuts and bolts of it. This is where the rubber hits the road, guys. This is the broadhead. The business end. The business end of the live stream. You guys have any questions for me? I appreciate you guys all being here. You've been steady about showing up for these live streams. I really appreciate that. I'm doing my best to make sure they're full of information, but always keep in mind that I am learning as well. Heck, half the information I shared with you tonight might be off. But that's okay, because we're learning together, and if you have something to give me for input, I appreciate your guidance. I really do. There's a lot that I am still ignorant of. So, okie dokie. No questions. We'll keep on rolling. So I put this in here because I knew that I was going to be talking about weeds with you tonight. Well, how do you fish weeds? When you do this jig head presentation, however you tie this or whatever, they're talking about this snap up and drop thing. So you can't just crank this and let it swim through the weeds. You'll just have weeds. What you got to do is pop it. And so this lure is going to pop up and then drop down into the weeds, and pop up and drop down in the weeds. And if you have a rig that's set up right, and you can probably use like just a simple, like you see here, a simple jig head with some like a bucktail kind of feathering on the back, you can talk to Jeremy at Aquatic Imitations, and he will set you up with some fantastic flies, or buckheads that he can tie up, bucktails that he tied up. But you're going to pop them up like this, and when you pop them, you really do. You really rip them out of there. And it has a good tendency to actually throw the leaves, or not the leaves, the weeds off of the hook. So if you grab one of these weeds here on the way up, you'll have a tendency to rip it off because of the resistance in the water. And as you're popping them like that, of course, you're disturbing a lot of weeds. And that walleye up here hunting the weed edges, I'm telling you, he is on fire. If he's up working the weeds, he is ready to eat. So it's just a reaction kind of thing. He's going to see movement, and he'll hit it. So this is a good technique just to work weeds. And it's really, I don't know too many techniques that work better than just ripping right through the weeds. And it's a lot of fun too, because when you load up, you've already said, so you'll just be bouncing, you'll just be ripping that jig, and it'll just go boom, and you'll have the weight. Because when you rip it up, that walleye follows it, and as it falls down, he catches it. So he sucks it in, and then when you go to rip it back up through, it's just loaded, and it's go time. It's up to you to get that fish into the boat. So a lot of the slides I used today were put together by Lindy. That's a company that makes this jig head on the bottom. So they're demonstrating, and I put a couple arrows in here so I could really point out the gap between the eye and the hook. But they're demonstrating how their hooks were specifically made for jig and jig tipped with minnow. So this rig right here that you're looking at here. This jig head is a fantastic jig head. There's nothing wrong with that. It's a fantastic jig head. I say nothing wrong with it. I have some preferences to a jig head, but like this eyelet, I would like to see it turned. It's such a simple thing to look for. I would like to see it a little further forward. I wouldn't mind if it was up here on this edge right here. The reason they do this is for a specific presentation, but I find that I like them in the front whenever I'm doing this. Now, it's comparing to the one that's up here, the standard jig head, which I use a lot of. I have these. It's got a wider gap, which is good. But you see how far back the minnow is rigged. What I want you to actually get from this picture is two things. One, the gap. You have to have a gap there so that you can get that into the fish's mouth. The longer that gap is, the better off your hook set's going to be. They do make a cutout for jig heads where your tie would actually be really low and actually inside the lead head up here. I like those as well. But this one kind of sticks out and it's closing that gap, which I'm not crazy about. And you can see this one's more open. But you want to be thinking about this when you get your jig head. You want to make sure you have enough room that you can get the hook in there, that it's not impeding the hook set. There's nothing wrong. This is a great jig head. It's going to work. So this is it. I wouldn't want it any shorter. That's the first thing I want you to think about, that gap. And the second thing is how this minnow is hooked. Now, I'm not going to pick on Lindy too much, but they hooked these very different. Can you guys pick out the difference in the way that these guys are hooked? Do you see it? The Lindy rig is hooked much better. And they're doing this because they want to demonstrate the long distance between the jig head, your line, and the minnow, specifically where the fish would bite. Most fish, the walleye, they're gonna attack from the rear, and they'll probably grab just like half of it right here. Now that's true with both of these. The walleye's gonna grab half of it, but this one is closer to the hook. If he grabs if he grabs halfway, he's closer to this hook. You can grab halfway on this one, it's a big jump to get up to this hook. So they have it hooked shallow, so it's just right behind the eye. And on this one, it's hooked deep, so it's way back here on his back. What I could tell you, ideally, you would have this hook back here on the back of his spine, right here. But look how long that shaft would have to be. Look how awkward it would be to hook. It'd be an odd setup. What you can do here is just run a stinger. If you're really a stickler for this, which I could be a stickler about things sometimes, run a real 4-pound test stinger. The tiny hook right back here behind his dorsal fin maybe. Or you just run it like it is, but when you hook this, make sure you bury this hook back as far as you can get it onto the shaft while still leaving that hook well exposed. I see the stream dropped. I'm just waiting until it kicks back on. I'm just giving it a chance to catch up, guys. Stand by. Yeah, Buck. So the Lindy hooks are, as I said, they have the right profile on the hook. I would just like to see that they were hooked a little deeper. It is actually angled up a little bit, though. That's a good observation. I see it now. I wonder if it's not straightened. If that's not just a straightened hook. What I should have done is dug up an original picture of the Lindy hook. But yeah, I see it now. You're right. It's just aimed up. So what Lindy did when they hooked this is they hooked their minnow, what I would call correct, and then the one they compared it to, they hooked it shallow. So just make sure when you're hooking these up that you go a little bit deeper. That's the takeaway, if there is one. But I think you guys got that. All right. Very good. It looks like Signal's back, so I had a little drop there, a little buffering, so my apologies. We're still working this out. We're running on Starlink tonight. So tonight's live stream is being made possible because of a buddy of mine shared his Starlink with me for a couple days here, so we'll be able to get a couple streams out of it. And I think I'm actually going to order it. This is probably what I'm going to do for internet out here at Fish Camp. So let's talk about what they eat. Right now, I mentioned that the spring and the walleye are moving up into the very, very shallows right now. And guys, I'm talking very shallow. Walleye are pushing the bank. So if you get in there in 1 foot of water looking for walleye, don't second guess yourself. You're in the right place. The reason they're in there real shallow is we got a lot of these insects that are coming into hatch. So they're way up on the bank, right on the stream, right on the side of the stream, and they're chasing them. The mayfly is your biggest reason. The mayfly is their main one. They'll still hit shiners, so don't give up on using a minnow-tipped jig head. Just use a nice shiner for them. But mostly it's the mayflies. But certainly there's all kinds of insects up there on the banks, and they're just up there eating them up. Now, as summer gets here, you'll see that perch takes up the biggest portion of their diet. And I think I have a thing on... Do I have a thing on perch? No. I looked at a thing today on perch, but essentially... it's suffice enough just to point out that actually I feel like I did have something on perch. I do have something on perch. Yeah, here it is. Let me just share this with you. A little clunky here. Bear with me. Here it is. So you guys have seen this before. What we're looking at is temperature ranges for all the different species. Here's walleye. You notice the temperature of 53 to 52 or 72. Look up here at yellow perch. 55 to 72. Essentially the same temperature for yellow perch and walleye. They essentially end up in the same narrow band of water, and that is why they end up making up such a big part of the walleye's diet. I don't think it's any other reason. I think it's because it's a temperature comfort thing. It's just what they're used to being. It's where they live. They live on the same street, so naturally they run into each other. I'm pretty sure that's all it is. So perch makes up the biggest portion of their diet over the summer months. So if you're putting together colors and thinking about techniques for your cast retrieve or trolling perch might work, but you're going to have to get down where they're at. And this is probably the biggest portion of our walleye fishing is through the summer, so it's really something to be thinking of. And then, of course, in the fall, we go back to shiners. And fall is a wonderful time to do jig-tipped minnows for walleye. So that's something to keep in mind here for moving through in the fall. But we'll talk about this again before fall. And then winter, well, most of you guys don't fish during the winter. Through the ice, maybe, huh? So I'm going to talk about rigs just a little bit with you. I'm going to talk about the most classic of all the walleye rigs, what we would call a Lindy rig, or, Lindy rig. I think the company Lindy just made it popular, so we kind of stole it from them, I guess. But this sinker you see down there on the bottom, it's got a little rock to it, so when it hits the bottom, it'll take the weight off of the line. And if you have an inflated worm, the worm will stay up off the bottom, and that helps keeping it from getting into snags at Raystown Lakes. This is a really good rig. The biggest issue is making sure you have the right size weight so that it gets it down, but it doesn't drag hard through the snags at Raystown Lakes. So you're going to figure that weight out and kind of dial it in. You might have to change it to be lighter or heavier, depending on how deep you find them whenever you're out there fishing them. But something that's important to do is have either, I like to run a floater jig head, so that's this first one. And then I'll shorten this lead depending on how high I want it to go. So if I only want it to be a foot in the column, I'll leave about 18 inches to my floating jig head, and it'll pull my worm up to about a foot. And then you can also do these three pictures here with an inflated night crawler. So you just use a needle, a syringe, and you put air into the night crawler. I've even seen people take a straw, like a stir straw that you use for coffee, and just insert that into the worm and blow it up like a balloon or something. So I've seen that too. I guess that works. And then down here in the very, very, very bottom, you see a leech. Leeches are actually really well known to be solid for setting up a Lindy rig for walleye. And then, of course, you can do a drop rig for walleye and just troll at this depth. But I think at this point, you're bottom bouncing and trolling. So this one up here is more of a troll rig. And you can change your leader length depending on how close you want to be to the bottom. It's showing 6 foot. You could do less or more depending on how long your drop rig is. But this one over here with the Lindy rig, this is a cast retrieve method. This is really popular. I think it's my preferred method. So the two big ones would be minnow tip jig head and the Lindy rig. Let me grab, I know I have some more pictures that I want to share with you. Let me just grab them up here. Adjustable float, yep, that one. Hot spots, slip, Lindy, yeah. Give me 1 second to get caught up with this. I have a couple slides that I forgot to include here, and I'm missing them. I'm missing them right now. I'm going to solve it right now, and then we can get back into it here. If you guys have any questions for me, now would be a good time to throw them into the chat. I appreciate you guys checking out the stream tonight. We're kind of on the tail end. I got about 10 minutes maybe worth of stuff, and then we'll be done. All right, I'll show you what I'm looking at here. We'll go back through the pictures that I skipped. And bring you up to speed. So these we got all of these. So okay, so this one was another take on the Lindy rig here with the leech. Just a real short lead here. Well, I guess it's broken, so it can be any length you want it to be. And then you could also do the twin tail. They call this the marabou jig, but this is usually a pork rind, but you could certainly do that with a leech as well on the back of a bucktail. That's another rig that's classic and popular. I talk a lot about slipping, and this is really effective, like it says, if you're fishing shallower water, walleye, and it says it's key. It's certainly an important technique. Slipping is, I think, more of bouncing. So bouncing would be, let's say you think the walleye are down here in the bottom section of the river here, right? What I would do is I would start with my boat here, and I would motor it back and forth, bouncing it. So kind of like doing this little bounce, if you will, back and forth, working up to the depth that I like. And I would kind of bounce from shoreline to shoreline as well. To cover this area that I think is holding walleye, I would do this bouncing technique. And you understand that you're slipping as well. So you're slipping by you're holding your lure and letting the current take your lure to it. And you just pick it up and let it loft in, and you pick it up and let it loft in. So that's how you slip your lure downstream, fishing as you go. This is a very slow and methodical process, and it's highly effective, guys. It's a very natural presentation. The key here is to make sure that you have a floated hook, so your hook's not dragging down on the bottom. You can have a weight up above it, but you want to make sure your hook doesn't get down in there and just get snagged on things. Your hooks can certainly get snagged, or I'm sorry, your sinker can still get snagged, but you can downsize that really light. You can use like a split shot, just something to control it well enough that you can slip the rig in while you're doing this bounce technique of working this column. And I'm using my mouse to kind of demonstrate how you're bouncing side to side, forward and back, upstream and downstream. But you're going to be using your lure, and you might have to retrieve it and resend it, and you're going to catch fish all the whole time you're doing this. But what you're going to do is really work this section here of this river. Now, this is a river. Yes, you can do this same technique if you're in bigger water. It's just a simple adaptation of it. So you get yourself into the highest current or the section over next to the bank that you think has that steep drop off or a shelf that you want to address, and you work that shelf with your back upstream, and you just work that shelf, then move forward about 15 yards, then work that shelf again. Just slip it in there as best you can. So you want to bounce and slip these drop-offs or these shelves where you think the walleye are going to be most active 90% of the time. Slip, just bobbing and weaving. I brought this up. I thought this was actually a really good example of how you can run it in different ways. So this one has the Lindy down here on a slide rig, and it gets stopped by a swivel, and then it has an adjustable float. It's an adjustable float, so this is holding it down. The float lifts it up. And then he has a night crawler, a leech, and then a real short floating lead with a minnow. But you can adjust this however you want to do it. You can tie these up. You don't have to order them. They're simple tackle. You can tie them up yourself. I think I actually have a better picture here. This is the better picture of it right here. The adjustable float is really good. I actually do this same rig when I'm trolling live bait for striper. This line going up to the fishing rod, it goes up to a planer board. So I keep my bait super, super shallow, essentially 0 in depth. Sometimes I'll put that float right at the shad to keep them right there at the top. So just a board ahead of them, straight back to a float. Maybe keep the board just about 8 to 10 feet in front of them, and that shad stays right at the surface. Essentially a trolled topwater live bait. So that's a good rig too. Just a little tip for striper. And to reiterate, 90% of the time that walleye is going to be down here inactive, and when he comes up on the shelf or up into the weed line up here, this is when they become active. Notice the fish classification. Notice the size of the walleye compared to the deeper ones. The ones that you find that work these shelves tend to be the one you want. So you got to learn this secondary point. You got to find these drop-offs, and then you got to find this stair-step ledge, how it comes down. And it might not be perfectly flat like this. It might just be kind of slanted, but it's a sloping ledge. Those are the places we're going to look for walleye. Let me pause there just for a minute. Hey Paisley, welcome. Glad you made it. It's growing, guys. We're doing better and better. Look at that. We picked up a new sub. Everybody say hi to Paisley, our newest sub. Paisley is the newest member of the Randall Rydes fishing community. We're a growing community. Welcome. So we're going to work through the last couple slides I have here. So if you guys have any questions you've been holding on to, now's a great time to throw them out there. I think I have like 4 more slides, and we're on the tail end of this stream. And this is the best part. This is where it all culminates and comes together. And this is what's going to make fishermen out of us all. It's about to happen. Hold on tight. A lot of people talk about some areas being good for walleye, but only time to time. I think we all have this conversation. We all have a friend that we have this conversation with. It'd be like, oh, in the fall, I kill them right here. Next time someone has that conversation with you, I want you to incline your ear. Whatever that area is where they kill them, just for that short little window, kind of like we were talking about with lake trout. But if they're saying this about walleye, I want you to incline your ear and really take mental note of where that's at, because that's where they're at. They may not be pushing the bank and you can't kill them in that technique, and it's not the timing to be able to go out and try it, but make no mistake, they are there. You just have to figure out where they are right in that location. So we're going to reiterate something we touched on just a few minutes ago, that if this area exists where someone says they do really good in this certain area and it's close to deep water, then you want to look for this point that comes out and kind of meets the deep water. Essentially what I'm pointing at right here is that ledge, that drop off that goes right down into the main channel, if you will. That steep drop is where you want to indicate. This is a travel corridor, if you will. So they're going to use that deep water when they need to, but that point is going to be the structure they relate to, and will probably stage up on most of the summer year. Most of the time when you are fishing, this is where you're going to be looking for them. You're going to be looking to be staged up on the points, like I've already pointed out. These points or the ledges, these shelves, these areas that are close to where they like to hunt, but they can hold at with comfort. So depth, temperature, oxygen, things like that. So if you start first with just the deep water and then work backwards toward your friend's hot spot, you're going to find one of these points or a ledge or something where they do hold. Without these conditions, there can't be a hot spot, a spot where they consistently go to and they can count on it. It doesn't exist without the other ingredients. I love how it says, get dope on good places. Get dope on good places. It's aging the diagram, I think. But start with the deep water and work your way back. And you'll find these points connected to your hot spots. So reiterating something we talked about a little bit ago. And this is your slip technique that I wanted to remind everybody of. I have a I have a drifting live stream I did a few weeks ago. Go back and watch that if this is new to you. This should be just review, but if it's new to you, you should go back and watch that video. I go into this in depth. But the trolling motor is facing upstream, and all he's doing is lifting and dropping the lure, just lifting it and dropping it, and the current is taking his bait and making it hop along the bottom. This is true slipping. Essentially, he's spot locked, and he's using this to drift his lure. Now we have jog, or you can manually adjust your engine to move you left to right and in and out of the point. And now we're doing drift fishing, slipping, and bouncing all together. These three techniques start to look like each other whenever you actually start fishing them this way. And then if it's a stronger current, he's just saying you're going to need more throttle, a longer line, and heavier jig. So same technique, just you kind of just amp everything up. In this case, it's almost slack water. You're actually going to have to drive along, and he's pointing himself into the wind because that keeps the boat oriented the right way. And that lets him just basically troll along, jigging it super, super slow, guys. This is barely moving. I think you'd be better off just spot lock and cast retrieve, maybe fan cast and bring it back real slow. It's a lot of cast retrieve, but you can certainly do this. It'll be like one long cast. This would be good if you found an area you really want to hone on. So use your electronics and you marked fish in this one specific area. Get your jig down to them and just sit there. Just sit right on them, jigging it, letting the current do what it does, even if it's just a little bit. And you can move the boat to position it and pull it left, and then move the boat and pull it right. You can leave it down there in the strike zone longer and not do cast retrieve. Sometimes just letting bait soak is the presentation that they need. So if you can keep the bait presented for a longer time, even your slow lethargic fish will take it. They can't stare at it too long. Make it smaller, make it slower. But if you saw the fish, don't leave them. Stick with it. Figure it out. Makes sense, right? Yeah, you're welcome. Yeah, I think it's about the same for bass. I think we're talking about holding patterns, right? I think that's what we're referring to. So bass will relate to structure the same way, it's just they're much shallower. They're much shallower. Walleye are, generally speaking, they're going to go, they're happy in 60, 70 feet of water. I think they prefer to be shallower, probably about 40 to 50 feet of water, but light has a big role on walleye. So they'll go deeper to find comfort. But as far as figuring out location for them, it's very similar with bass. Ask that question in a full format way if I'm off, but I think you're asking about structure. I threw the temperatures up here for walleye. I wanted you to see that again, a 68 to 77. I think this is probably a little bit high, actually. I think it should probably be a little bit lower than that, but it's not bad, though. But right now, Lakers are fired up. I think temperatures that I saw in the water today were right around 56, something like that. So we're in the 50s. And then walleye after spawn, when the water warms up a little bit, we'll be ready to chase them too. And here's the floating jig head that I like. And this is shown with a leech. You can do it with a worm. But same idea. And it even works the same with green algae. It even works if there's a little bit of weeds because your hook stays up and out of the way. So this is a true Lindy rig. I like that with the floating jig head. I use this one quite a bit. And that's all I've got for slides, folks. You guys have any questions for me? I'm going to hang out for another 10 minutes or so, just kind of answering questions. If you have them, now is a great time to ask. Shoot, I can always go back and reference any of the slides if you need me to. But so the bank angling event is coming up pretty soon. If you guys haven't registered for that, you're welcome to do so. I will remind you that the registration is a voluntary registration. You do not have to register for it. It's important that you just show up for it. Bring the family out and be a part of the community by showing up for it. If you want to register, you are the old event. Just have to refresh it so it comes up. If you do want to do the registration, it's on my website at randallrydes.com, and there it is, May 9th. That is the day to be there. I will be set up the night before and the night of the 9th. So I'm going to be hanging out for a big block of time, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that bank is lit up. And I think we could probably get 50 or 60 people out there. So we're not going to run out of space. It's a good location to know, and it's right off of the Weaver Falls Bridge. So it's easy to get to, and the dock update that I just released last week actually talks about it. So that's the location for it. And there's the registration. I did mention that I'm light on charters this week, and I wish I wasn't. This week looks fantastic. Like fantastic. The temperature's right. We got some low barometer numbers. The conditions are good for fishing. Guys, I even went out today and marked a bunch, so I'm on them. Let's do this. If anybody wants to go fishing, here's my fishing charter registration and the consult trip. If you guys are interested in doing a consultation trip with me, reach out. But let's do this. I got a slow week ahead of me, and I don't like that. I like to keep moving. I think I'm probably similar to you guys too. So the slide I had for the size showing the deeper fishing being bigger. Oh, so are deep bass bigger bass? Is that what you're saying? Oh. Boy, it's hard for me to answer, and I'll tell you why. I'm going to take you back to the slide that we were talking about. I'm slow to say that is how it is, but I think I will. So I think this is the slide we're referencing here. Of course, this is one about inactive and active. But bass, I said that the larger fish are down here, deeper than the shallower fish. Have you noticed with bass fishing that when you cast the shallow banks, I'm talking about like right up against the edge, you tend to pick up bluegill and weird things. But like say you went up there with a shaky head or a Ned rig, and you throw something real finessey up there. It's almost like you have to get through one or two small bass and 5 or 6 panfish of some sort before you catch the bass that you're actually looking for. And I think it's like that. I think there is some size classification the majority of the time. That being said, just like walleye, big walleye do go up and frequent 1 foot of water when they're hunting. So if they're on the hunt, if they're looking to feed, I believe that your bigger bass, they are going to come up from the depths and they're going to go up and hunt like they always knew how to do. So they're going to find that low energy place where they can just hang out. And I do not think that the bass is most comfortable in hot water. I think they're going to back off as far as they need to until they're comfortable. So depending on water temperatures, I think you're going to be looking for a different class of fish if you get into deeper waters. Where did I put the temperature gauge? I want to look see what temperature is for bass. So here's your smallmouth bass. You're talking about the comfort range is around 80. So if the surface water temperature gets up to about, beyond 90, that's crazy. The water does get that warm. I think that your bass, or most of them, they're going to back off. I would say that the larger ones, am I crazy for saying this? I would think that the larger ones are probably quicker. They get ahead of the ball. They're probably already deep. I know that there is resident bass. That is, there's bass that just stay where they're going to stay. I've seen them in the winter up where they would be for spawning. And it doesn't make any sense. They're just up there way too early. It's just that they're resident bass. It's where they just stay. It's where they live. So we're not talking about the exception of them. We're talking about the rule. If I go to Lake Raystown and I want to catch hammers, I know that it's a deep water fishery. And the mature fish, regardless of species, is going to act like a deep water fish according to that species. So it's a great question. Do bigger bass go deep like bigger walleye? Man, I have to assume they do. We'll say a soft yes on that, but ultimately I have to simply say, I don't know. But a soft yes, I believe so. I would start checking deeper, but I don't know for sure. Thanks, Rick. I appreciate it, man. Yeah, you guys are awesome, man. I really appreciate you showing up for the live streams. And a lot of what I cover here is like borrowed information. We'll say I do a lot of slides from other people who created stuff. I'm glad the information's out there. But ultimately, it's a lot of fun to just sit down with you and you all and just do a little chatting about fishing. Tonight we covered a lot of ground with walleye, and hopefully you guys can come back and reference it. I'll stay on for another 5 minutes or so, and I'm going to wrap it up for the night. And I think it was a pretty good stream. And if you guys have any recommendations for another topic, then I'm all ears. If you have something you're specifically interested in, just say so in the comments. I'd appreciate it. I should point out I have I have some orders on back order with my lures. So if you do an order with me here this week, just bear with me. I am putting them together, but I'm also moving stuff, moving the camper and everything. I did get it moved. I'm set up at the new location, of course, but issues with the internet and all. Anyways, so there's a lot going on right now. So just bear with me. If you do an order for lures, I'll probably shoot you a message and give you an ETA on it. I've been waiting. This is my chance. We are going to do something. You know, the more I learn about carp, the more I want to go fishing for them. It's a fun fish to chase. My channel is at sub count. So YouTube wants you to have 1,000 subs, and then also wants you to have 4,000 hours of watch time. I'm low on watch time, so I'm still not monetized, even though I've met the threshold for subscribers. If you guys want to help, all you got to do is put on one of my long format videos and let it play. You can put it on the television and mute it. YouTube doesn't know. It's just, if you want to help out, you want to drive some hours, you can do that for me. I'd appreciate it. No cost way of supporting me. And the other thing is to follow the Amazon affiliate links that are down below all the videos. And if nothing else, reach out, do if you can't reach out and do a charter with me or something like that, or you're just not interested, reach out to one of the friends that's in my community and support them as well. Come out to one of the events. There's a lot of things you can do here in the community that's no cost. Most importantly, just get plugged in. Let's start talking. Let's start learning. And let's start catching. All right. Paddling and bassing is coming up. Phil just pointed it out. Racetown River Adventures down below. Phil's working on a couple projects. You guys want to go check out his page. He's available right there at Racetown River Adventures. But, yeah, we have the bank angling event coming up, and then shortly after that, we're going to do paddling and bassing. We're back on the Juniata, ripping lips. It's going to be a good time. Phil's going to show up with his this canoe he's putting together, fixing up. If you guys can join us for that too. It's really a low-class float, so beginner level float, so it's family friendly, and it's always a good time. But it's a 2-day float, 2 overnight stays, and you can play that float however you want. You can come and just camp. You can come and just float for 1 day or half a day, however you want to play it. There's a lot of takeouts and stuff. You can make plans. I can help you with that if you need to. Phil says he's going to have a video uploaded on Sunday with him patching up an old canoe. And that's the canoe you're going to see on Paddling and Bassing whenever you come out. So check it out. But guys, I'm going to let you go with that. I think that's the end of the live stream. I've covered a lot of ground and kind of want to eat something. So I'm going to go eat something this late at night and then just chill out for a little bit. Maybe I'll watch another fishing video. But I appreciate you guys stopping in and checking it out. And that's it. Do a like for the video on your way out. And I will talk to you guys on the dock update. Monday night at 8 p.m. is live streams. And I try to do a dock update for you guys each week. Hit or miss, I try to do that. But you're welcome to shoot me a text anytime. RandallRydes.com for everything Randall Rydes. That's it. Have a great night, guys. Much love. Much respect.